without further ado, it's time for us to bring on Lisa and Phil. Thank you so much for coming to the conference and being part of it again. Like you were here in 2022, back for 2023, and I don't think I've had the opportunity to tell you, but it's bigger and badder and better. So last year we had about 3,000 registrations before, and then Enview has about doubled that. This year we had 5,000 registrations. Last year we had from 52 different countries. This year from over 90. We just did a little shout out asking people where they're from. We had people come in from England, from Wales, from Scotland, from Northern Ireland. So we collected all the devolved nations. And we had people as far afield as Cambodia checking in. So it's a wonderful showing that we are the truly global thing that we aim to be. Right, come on, you guys are eye of the storm. What the hell's it been like?
Phil had hair at the beginning of the year, and I wasn't quite so grey.
It's I think what we have to say, Henry, at the start to everybody listening is, we are in the eye of the storm, but actually we're not suffering. The medication shortage, which we will talk about in the 50 minutes or so that we've got with you, it is not a laughing matter. It's a very, very serious thing, and I've seen your commentary on it, and
I didn't. I actually I've changed mode because I was so angry.
Yeah,
and I was just like, this wouldn't happen. Like, and the way they carelessly treat
your analogy of this is like taking the wheelchair off somebody that can't walk. I cannot think of better words to describe this bloody position that people are in.
I didn't worry I was going to get in trouble with that. Yeah, I said it's like taking a wheelchair away from someone who needs it, and it was just because like this is something that so many of us need, and to just like be so careless.
Yeah, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
And yes, let's have a light-hearted approach to the hour. But what I do want to put a stick in the stand in and say this isn't a light-hearted subject, and it's a subject we're all cross, angry, and passionate about. And
I am pleased to see some coverage.
It's 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday, and it's blowing a hoolie outside here in Lincolnshire. So let's enjoy the 50 minutes. But I don't want anyone to think that we're pouring cold water on what is an extremely difficult time for everybody. And we are at the eye of our personal storm as an organisation, but we are not the patient without medication who's having now to struggle and suffer with impairment and symptoms that they've managed to find a way through over the last X amount of years. And there's nothing we can say, there's nothing we can do other than try our best. But we do understand the gravity of this situation. Yeah. And I want to say that as an organisation, but as a human being as well. We've got family, both of us, with ADHD. 20 years ago, we didn't have when we started this work, but we both have now. We've got employees with ADHD, and they're all suffering the same as everybody listening. So please, 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 Henry, you know how passionate Lisa and I are about this.
Yeah, I do.
And but we'll get to that. But I don't want anyone misunderstanding. I laugh and a joke at the fact there's some very serious subjects here. Panroama. Should we start there, Henry? Would that work as the light goes out in my study?
It's giving you better lighting, actually.
Well, and wave my arms about, flap about like a pelican.
It's very good.
Pelican can't find any speed at the moment. So, should we start there?
Let's do it. So, if I do a quick, the Panroama show came on because we were very worried about it from the get-go. We participated in challenging the initial premise. The name did get changed because it was the initial title was ADHD: The False Diagnosis, if memory serves correctly, and we raised the points which we continue to raise, to be fair, which was that you are doing this in a non-balanced way. You are not doing this properly, and in doing so, you will cause harm. And you were the ADHD 360 was the third organization in it. We actually, so obviously we've continued, I recognize how much work ADHD 360 does, and we've continued obviously to promote your right to choose pathway. We actually get we get letters and emails, people saying you shouldn't. Like, have you not seen the Panroama? You should remove them. You shouldn't. And we obviously have not opted to do that. But it would be interesting for you to know. What was your side of this?
Well, so Lisa, we've lived, eaten, and not slept through this last 6 months, and I think the first thing we need to say, Henry, is that we can come at this from our perspective as an organisation trying to help people who have ADHD. This was incredibly damaging to ADHD globally. If we give you some for instances, and there's some commentary here, and Lisa's just sent me a text about it, which I do want to pick up on. Panroama was misplaced. It was totally and utterly irresponsible television reporting that had no grounds to damage this community that we serve and are proud to be part of. And the BBC need to reflect on that. And hopefully the work that you've done, that we've supported with the Ofcom complaint, we'll be able to do something. So people get an idea. What's happened over the last 6 months is all those organisations that don't support the private sector delivering services for ADHD have basically ganged up on the private sector to actually see what they can do. And a number of companies have gone bankrupt. A number of companies have been put under extraordinary pressure. And all of that has ultimately affected the employees in those companies, but also the amount of patients they're seeing. If I give you an example, every single NHS commissioner for a contract that we had put a pause on sending us patients because of Panroama. That travesty meant that the biggest supplier of services in Europe for ADHD no longer was serving through the NHS. And that is ridiculous, absolutely bloody ridiculous. And Lisa has led the clinical team and I've led the organisation through responding to that. It ain't about us, it is about patients. And when I talk about the things that we've had to do, this isn't about, oh, woe is ADHD 360, oh, poor Phil Anderton. Don't give a damn about that. And I know Lisa doesn't give a damn about herself, but it's the effect on the end patient that is really hurting us. There's some commentary in here that says, it's a shame that ADHD 360 have lost their NHS contract. Now, we haven't. We absolutely haven't. What Manchester have done as a collective of previous CCGs, now one single ICB, have decided not to commission services for ADHD. And what they want to do is go away and have a think about it, and in the meantime, not do anything. Now, that travesty of decision-making is another wheelchair pulling exercise. And
wait a second. Sorry, what? They're not commissioning any service at all.
No,
so what happens if you're in Manchester and have ADHD?
We don't have ADHD Manchester.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's if there's anybody from Manchester ICB listening to this, this absolutely needs to be publicised. They have closed the door to ADHD whilst they make up their mind what pathway to run. We haven't lost the contract. In fact, the contracts we had in Manchester were because they cocked it up the first time, and they came to us to rescue them. And we rescued them, lock, stock and two smoking barrels. When they opened the door to referrals in Salford, they contracted us to see 50 patients a month. And in month 1, we got 170 referrals. In month 2, we got 170 referrals. And that continued through the duration of the contract. So they have no idea of the scale of the problem that they're actually trying to commission a service for. So we dealt with those 170 a month to the best of our capability. And when the contract expired, they extended it for us to carry on with the people that were still being referred to us. We've actually got to the final end of that list. So we were committed for a period of time contractually. It was extended because instead of sending us 50, they were sending us 170. At one stage, we were seeing 90 to 100 patients a month for Manchester. And they've stopped the contract because we've got to the end. Now, interestingly, if we're going to be bitter and twisted about it, and please allow me to, because I bloody well am, as we got to the end of their list that they provided us with, there were 7 people left at the end of September. And the letter that says, thanks for doing what you've done, but we're not going to renew it for now. Whilst we go away and have a think, we're closing the pathway. And one of the reasons is there's only 7 people waiting for an assessment in Manchester. And it's just incredulous that they can actually close a list, ask us to discharge that list, and then say there isn't a list anymore. It's utter. Henry, you run a fine establishment. You're a very polite man, but please allow me at 9:20 on a Thursday evening to just tell you that's a load of bollocks. And it should not be allowed that commissioners can run things in this way. So the eye of the storm that we talk about is having this impact on our patient groups, because the level of irresponsibility in commissioning is just unbelievable at the moment. And we've got 42 commissioning groups, I think it is, across the UK, who cannot unify on a single description of what a good service looks like and how to commission it and how to contract it. And as a really big provider who currently, because of the way we've been tracked by the NHS, is making a huge financial loss every month because they're taking the patients away. We employ the clinicians, we employ the staff. They're not sending us the patients that they promised us, and now we're making a financial loss. We've seen other companies go bankrupt. We are working really hard not to do that. But we should be under no illusions that the Panroama and then the Flat Earth Society, the people that don't believe the Earth is round, jumping on the back of Panroama is the most damaging thing that's happened to ADHD in the 20 years I've worked in this industry. It is politically incredibly disappointing. And there is an expectation that we just laugh it off and carry on. And actually, we're dedicated to patients. We're dedicated to improving people's lives. And we can't bloody get access to them at the moment. And it's crippling. But before I bring Lisa in to talk about the impact on the clinical team, and what the clinical team have done, just to put one complete myth and rumour to bed once and for all, we are still under contract to NHS England to provide ADHD services, just not for Manchester. And what that means is we still have an obligation under the guidance and the framework, and we have a desire to meet the obligation for right to choose. So any patient can still justifiably come to ADHD 360 under right to choose. So whilst Psychiatry UK have suffered as a consequence, like I've just been talking, and I know that team well, and they've closed their doors to both private and NHS at the moment whilst they're trying to recover their position, we are desperately trying to keep our doors open. And right to choose, we have a substantial number of right to choose patients waiting for a service from us, and we are now switching our resources from NHS contracted work to go to right to choose. To give you we were seeing on contract 250 patients a month. Post Panroama, that was pulled completely, and the income that is required to pay our staff, is required to keep the lights on in the building. Neither Lisa or I drive Ferraris. We don't go on big expensive holidays. This is very difficult to make money as a business out of this gig. It really is. The loss of 250 patients a month without anybody giving a hoot to the impact on the provider has been very damaging to us. Roughly £250,000 a month income gone, but we've still got the wages, still got the overheads, and we're now making a loss. And that's 250 over 4 months, at least 4 months. That's over 1,000 people have not had their treatment on the NHS that should have. And I think that is absolutely something we should be shouting about as a travesty. And thank you to the BBC. Really grateful. I don't even watch the BBC at all now. I won't even watch Strictly Come Dancing because I don't believe it's reporting on dancing properly. The crippling impact to the community is absolutely outrageous. And as a handover to Lisa, there's one key message I want to say to everybody listening to this. We've between 10 and 20,000, I can tell you the number, I can't remember it right now, 10 and 20,000 patients on our books. Every one of those patients is pissed off with what's going on. And every one of those patients is now facing time without medication because the industry has cocked up. And every one of our patients is ringing us to find out what they're doing. And I'm really, really sorry, but we cannot pick up 10,000 calls a day. And I have got a huge heart.
Yeah.
I've got a huge dollop of love for everybody that we serve. But I'm really sorry, we cannot manage this. And
Yeah, and
be patient with us.
that's why I got so angry with the advice, which was like everyone's GP needs to contact them to find out how much medication they've got, like, which is almost. I've actually now, one person commented that they got a text from their GP, and then that GP is supposed to speak to the specialist team, which in this case is you, and work out a medication plan. You're like
It's impossible.
It's like, yeah, exactly. And at the same time, like, obviously at the same time, you're not allowed to start medication for anyone, so anyone struggling is out. It's just the fact that was the guidance, which was completely ridiculous, was just so just showed a complete lack of care.
Shocking, and what that guidance did was push the responsibility into away from where your responsibility should be, and the pharmaceutical companies who provided great service when they provide great medicine. Don't get me wrong.
They're like, yeah, I'm not an anti-pharma, but like, you shouldn't say.
And I've got good friends in pharma who, and thank God we have got good friends and contacts in pharma, because we're working very closely with them at the moment. But they have to be held to account for this. And I've written and had a meeting with the head of Takeda and make Elvance and Elvance adults, saying, you need to write to these patients and bloody tell them it's your cock-up. Because at the moment, patients are...
You know, so I did meet with Takeda a few days ago, like, and I met with others, and I haven't been able to get clarity on what's gone wrong. Like, do you know?
Yeah. So the main production line and factory setting for ADHD medications in our part of Europe is in Southern Ireland, and they've had process issues and quality issues in that production, and therefore they've had to downsize what they're doing to rebuild the quality. And
is there only one supply chain? Because multiple medications have gone down.
This is exactly the key question, Henry, because what they've tried to do is build a factory in Germany to make sure there wasn't a single point of failure going forward. They haven't built it and got it online in time, and therefore the single point of failure that they were trying to avoid has actually happened, and it's caught them out. And
so then you've got to have a fair point. At least that second point is being made. Like, it was an identified problem that was in the process of being.
They were trying. They've been. This is a perfect. People talk about the perfect storm, and this is a perfect shit storm. And we're coming out.
Our YouTube algorithm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Welcome to my world. And so in the recovery of Panroama, and then all of that assurance that we've had to do with the NHS to recover that position, which we've done, we've then got this, and it's absolutely catastrophic yet again for the ADHD community. This is going to go down on record as the hardest year for the ADHD community ever, without a shadow of a doubt. Because this time last year,
I hope so, just because I hope it gets better. Like,
yeah, well, no, it will get better. It will get better. And you know what we've all got to have is hope. And if we don't have hope, there's no blooming point. But at least Lisa can talk about the impact on the clinicians of all of this. Because can you imagine being the clinician that was outed on that Panroama program who'd done absolutely nothing wrong? Absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not going to comment on the standards shown by the other organisations, but for our organisation, we absolutely showered ourselves in glory in that program, and yet we're still held to account for doing things wrong. And Lisa, talk about the response of the clinical team, maybe, and where we've gone with that.
So Phil and I did a meeting with our clinical team, and as you can imagine, it was quite an emotive meeting, and without exception, everybody was devastated, because we know how hard we work as a team, and the training that's involved, and you know, just how experienced our guys are, and you know, and they work really hard for our patient group. You know, they want to change lives. They want, you know, as one of our clinicians will say on an hourly basis, I want people to live their best life. And we knew categorically that a lot of people believe what they see on the television and in the news. So we knew how devastating this was going to be for the ADHD community. And it's really difficult to defend a position like that when people believe that is actually the case. But our team were absolutely devastated because they know that they do a blooming good job. So collectively, they've pulled together. We proudly, some of the leadership team went to the World Congress in May, which was just after the Panroama program, and managed to challenge the other person that was on the program from the NHS, and it was an interesting conversation, shall we say, because we know that what we do is accurate. It is based on the DSM criteria. We gather so much information beforehand, and we're confident in our diagnosis. So we had that very frank conversation versus what may or may not happen in the NHS, and the damage that we know it will do to the ADHD community based on, will GPs believe a diagnosis from a private service, or will our patients get shared care? So I think since the Panroama programme, we've pushed on as a team. We continue to do exactly what we did before. We looked at our so just one part of what we did with our clinicians was to look at our training programme and create a document with everything that we trained our staff on in the last year. So we did a 12-month trawl of our training programme, and there were 7 pages of A4 of the training that had been delivered to every single clinician. So it's been an interesting exercise in terms of really trying to defend ourselves, but gather the evidence so that we know there are no gaps in our clinicians' knowledge and expertise. And I think the other thing to say, and I think people don't think about our support staff as well, because on the day that Panroama hit, and on the day that some of our NHS contracts were halted, one of the team who managed one of our NHS contracts had just managed to onboard 32 of our NHS patients. And that takes a long time, but they know that when they've done that, they can then go on to assessment. And she had to then call 32 patients and say, we can't do that assessment, so we'll get back to you when we can. And she was in absolute floods of tears because she knows, talking to our NHS patients on a half-hourly basis, the impact that's going to have on our patients. And it's not just the patient. In fact, someone commented about those 7 patients that are on the Manchester waiting list. Yeah, that's 7 patients, but actually it's 7 patients and 7 partners and 7 families and 7 wider families and 7 employees. So it's not just 7 patients, it's the wider perspective of what this is doing to our patient population and the wider society. And so I'm not happy that there's 7 patients on that waiting list in Manchester that doesn't exist. And when we acquired that contract, for example, there was 5 years worth of patients waiting who thought they'd been referred to a service that actually didn't exist. So we've managed to sort that waiting list out. But as a service, our clinicians and our front office staff are equally frustrated and equally devastated, but are determined to keep going for our ADHD community. Everyone in our team is passionate about making
That's
things.
And that was one of the, obviously I know you guys, and I know a lot of people working within the ADHD world, this tarnishing of everyone private. And obviously you guys are being particularly as like just money grabbing, doing it like, and you can get any kind of, you can just buy an assessment, was just so outrageous. And we obviously did big research. We got over 2,000 people, which clearly showed that actually patients felt they had, if you looked at them, well, I could make it like if I was a newspaper at this point, I would make an act of like that the NHS numbers were worse, which they were, but it was very marginal. What the reality was, they were almost identical. Like the graphs track, and we did it at the very start of the conference, and so the whole idea that the private and right to choose sector was this awful thing was absolutely wrong.
I think that's a really good point, and I think one of the things that we've looked at in response to Panroama was the diagnostic rates. So they asked us how many patients do we diagnose, and so I thought, actually, I don't know that number, so let's go and look. But what we actually do, our onboarding system does a screen first, so an ASRS screen for an adult or a SNAP for a child. And if it's a negative screen, we actually say, do you know what? Don't go any further. So it's free up to that point. There's no money changes hands. It is literally do this. Let's see if it's a positive screen. If it is, then we'll move forward. And if it's not, don't bother. And we screen out 78% of our patients who do that screen. So obviously the ones that get through who have a positive screen, we still do our full assessment workup. But we've screened out loads who may actually have got to the NHS at some point and been seen. So, we were really confident then that actually we might diagnose a higher percentage than the NHS, but that's because we screen out before they even get to us. And I think, it was a nice piece of work and a nice bit of data to back up that we don't diagnose everyone. And do you know what? I was saying to Phil, if you were to diagnose someone who hasn't got ADHD and then start to treat them, you would start them with a stimulant and work all the way through the doses, and then that wouldn't work. And then you'd switch them and titrate through that, and that wouldn't work. And then you'd go to a non-stimulant and titrate through, and that wouldn't work. And then you might go off license. That would take the best part of a year. And you know what? They are my heart sync patients who come, and we do our follow-ups every 3 weeks. So I am not going to diagnose someone with ADHD who's not got ADHD to then have a year of heart sync appointments because they're not getting any better, So it was, it was something that we would never do. We would never diagnose someone who's not got ADHD.
It's great that you brought those facts up, and it's something that had been shared with me previously. It's great to have those out. And that was the point I was trying to make, which I managed to distract myself on, which was that there are so many people trying so hard to help people, and for them to just get tarnished in this way is just an outrage.
Yeah.
Now, look, we do have quite a few questions coming in, and we need to talk through the medication and then do some questions. So let me bring Phil back in, yeah. Well, so first question is like, what would you said you can't pick up the phone to everyone, and I've seen messages around talking about people being in long queues. What would you say to your patients now trying to contact you, trying to get in touch?
So we are contacting every patient, and we can do that by more controlled means. So every single patient has had at least one, if not two, letters from us. And those are also contained on our website as a reference point for even our non-patients on this is what's happening, this is the best we can do, this is the advice we've got for you. So we're contacting our patients regularly and proactively, because reactively it's impossible. Last night we ran a free webinar for patients about how to cope in the non-medication availability crisis. I've just done an hour with a coach called Leanne Maskell. I'm sure you know of Leanne. She's great. She's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. What she brings to it is youth and vitality, whereas crusty old men like me and moderately middle-aged ladies like Lisa have a slightly jaundiced perspective, and I'll get on my bath chair and wheel myself down the bedroom later. And Leanne brought youth, vitality, and a good coach perspective on things you can do. And the other thing that she brought, which was truly, truly, genuinely exciting, was we should not lose hope. This is a 6-week blip, if we can call it that. We've got to keep hope. And so what I'm saying,
but it's the people with like. There's a difference between your like surviving through a tricky part and then people who've got critical things going on.
Absolutely.
Like, and then
without a doubt. So we've also written to all of the GPs for our patients. That letter's been signed off today. And in there, we're saying to them, look, don't bloody come and ask us for what to do. I've just blown your algorithm again. Don't come to us and ask what to do. Here's what to do. Yeah. And for every patient, there will be an option of what you can try to do. And the thing we've got to be very careful about is that what we medically ask people to do is the art of the possible. And it is no use saying, come off, when you finish your LVANs, go on to immediate release dexamphetamine. Because within an hour, there'll be no immediate release dexamphetamine in the world because they're not geared up to fill the gap. It's no use saying, come off your Concerta that you can't get and go on to Zenodate or go on to Zagotin or go on to whatever, because within an hour, those will have gone. Such is the scale of the problem. What we've got to be giving is pragmatic advice of what you can and should do. And it's really sad, and it should never have been allowed to happen. But the best advice we can give to people is how to cope and keep hope. Because, and in the session I did with Leanne,
and the summary, just because it's brutal for people, but I think clarity is what's needed, is that the medication is not there. And actually the National Patient Alert does say that the medication's not there and the replacement medication options aren't in the quantity, aren't enough. And so without question, people are going to have a period without medication over this. And that's going to...
And there's a lot of conversations about people saying, take it one day in 3. And I promise you, taking it one day in 3 ain't going to make you feel very well. That's going to make you feel pretty poorly. So we're talking about exercise, diet, getting help, acknowledging the problem, talking to your boss at work about you're going to have a problem. I've got a problem for the next 6 to 8 weeks. This is how I need you to help me. This is a recognised disability under the Equality Act. I need your help. I need accommodations. And we've got to front it up. We can't afford to be doing what some people are expecting us to do, to magic medication out of nowhere. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry to sound so severe about it.
No, look, I'm in this. Like, I opt for medication. I'm in this.
This is going to feel like the pandemic for a while. We're going to lose our freedom. We're going to lose the options to lead our best life that we have when we are treated medically, and we are going to have to find coping mechanisms. And the responsibility we hold is to proactively help our patients find those coping mechanisms. And I am under the illusion, and Lisa is under the illusion. If we say medication is the best thing available and then we take it away, what's left is pretty short shrift, and it's not going to do the job. It's just not. And it's reality. And
I rail against the use of the word coping mechanisms when we're talking, but in this circumstance, it's exactly correct. It is what can we do to like we are not getting a diagnosis for fun and jollies. Like, it's really, this is hard. Living like with this is hard, and so that and I thought actually your reality of talk to your boss, talk to your friends, saying this is going to be a difficult period, and like things that I have been able to successfully do I'm going to potentially really struggle. And I think one of those, that aspect of that inconsistency of ADHD, that I can do it, I'll do it then, and then I won't this time, and I'll be more forgetful, I'll struggle more to focus, to do that work, to zone in, and it's all going to happen.
And there's a lot of comments coming in here. what we should be doing, and again, I'm harking back to the hour I've just done with Leanne, which was a brilliant hour. And I would ask anybody who's got the time to reference back to that, and that the hour will be on our website, as are the other resources, as we build our resources to give people hope and allow people to cope. There's two things everybody should do. The first thing is they should write to their MP and complain about this travesty. There needs to be a public inquiry about how this has happened. The pharmaceutical industry needs to be called to Parliament, and it needs to account for itself on how it can leave the mental health community in this terrible position. I need to do your algorithm again. We all need to write to our MP and require a public inquiry as to how this travesty has been allowed to happen, because unless we hold people to account, it will be allowed to happen again. That is absolutely something we need to do. There is also a national petition that started to get 10,000 votes to ensure that this travesty is discussed in Parliament, and I think we all need to sign. So if you've got 5,000 people on this tonight, I want every one of these 5,000 people to sign that petition to make sure that Parliament starts to ask the right questions about what is going on. Suppliers like us, we're big in the ADHD closed community. I'm massive in my own life, but we are insignificant in places like Parliament, and we have to start to make an impression there. 5,000 more people will almost get us over the 10,000 votes line to have this discussed. And if we back that up, if every one of us backs it up with a letter to our MP, and if you're struggling to write that letter because you've not got your medication and your executive function isn't working, we will have a copy letter for you to fill and up on the website within 48 hours for you to use to write to your dear MP. This is terrible. Blah blah blah. Let me write the damn thing for you. I've not got a lot of faith in Parliament at the moment, Henry, but unless we actually play the game and do our part, can't complain that they've done nothing about it. We've got to force that to happen in Parliament, and I believe there will be an inquiry if we push hard enough, because this is all about.
Were there inquiries into others? So there was a period of supply chain for, like, when I was speaking to the Guardian, for whom I give a quote, they were talking about that HRT there was a supply issue there, that and their point was a bigger one, that they felt NHS purchasing was the problem, that it purchased on too bigger scale, or on too limited a scale of, they didn't demand the wide range, which I think obviously is a big challenge when you're dealing with,
well,
because you've created the things. And I think there is I think people who are outside can often think that it's as easy as making a korma and putting it in a ready meal. That pharmaceuticals can be very, very difficult to make. And if they wanted to look into that at all, look into the history of HRT and learn how the original HRTs were.
Absolutely. But what
it's horse urine.
What we've got is an NHS that is denying that ADHD is at the scale it is. They're denying access to services to people. They're not commissioning services. Manchester, a good example. And then they are not procuring medicine. They are not actually looking at the supply chain, and they're not holding that supply chain to account. This is right through the whole damn thing. And I am absolutely 100% aware of how difficult it is for people. But the one thing that can be positive about it is for everybody to channel their inner self into something positive and avoid channeling this into something negative. Channel it into making a difference and seeking to influence. Because there's no doubt about it, if we all get on the same bandwagon and we all champion the same thing, we will have something to aim at and something to focus on. And that is good for the ADHD community. Let's hyper-focus on influence. Let's hyper-focus on making a difference. Because that little burst of dopamine that will come from that daily thing that we could do to nag the MP, to nag Parliament, that little burst of dopamine is just a start, but it can give us hope. And I read Reddit, and I read social media, and I've made this plea today a number of times to the ADHD community. Get off Reddit. Get off that stuff that's sucking the lifeblood out of this debate.
Love Reddit.
And it's like saying don't breathe. And get on to positive journeys. Get on to being positive. Give yourself hope. Because if you don't, this is going to continue to drag us to drag you down emotionally. And to be fair, coming off your medication, you're not going to have the bandwidth to drag yourself down emotionally. And that will be crippling for any of us who've worked so hard for you to see that happen. And what we've got to do is keep going on a positive footing and try our damnedest. Get a mate who isn't ADHD, get someone who's neurotypical to help you and support you, to get your executive functioning gaps filled by somebody else. Keep your exercise, get exercising, get your diet right. Don't go back to McDonald's. Don't go back to microwave food. Don't do the things that you were doing beforehand. Help yourself, get somebody to help you, and tell your boss, get those accommodations, and absolutely make it. Someone's just said, Phil, you sound like an ADHD coach.
You actually, you know what? I'm going to give you more there. You're an ADHD motivation coach. You're the guy like.
Do you know what?
Going strong.
The clowns. I was going to use a word that began in F and ended in wits. The clowns that are trying to commission these types of services are telling me that I'm too passionate about this, and that they don't like the passion that we drive our service forward with. It's that passion that's going to make a difference. And unless we have passion, and unless we actually challenge the standard norm, unless we actually get off our backsides as professionals and challenge those very people who are making these poor decisions and make ourselves unpopular, we're not going to bring about change. The earth is not flat, and I will not allow commissioners to tell me that man did not go to the moon and the earth is flat. ADHD needs adequate services, it needs commissioning, it needs financing, and we need the medication to support our society. End of. And if these buggers don't want to do that, I will hold them to account. I will champion it. Yeah,
like we're there. Like what? So we've yeah.
As
you know, we're here. We're in this too. So
we're getting a load of stick, Henry, at the moment because we can't answer the phone because of this problem. I'm really sorry we can't answer the phone. I am. We're working with IT companies. We've employed more staff. We're making a loss every month. We're still employing more staff. We want to do better. We want to try and sort this. It's impossible, but it ain't going to stop us trying, and it ain't going to take away the passion. And here we are at 9 o'clock at night, giving people that message: don't lose hope. Don't lose hope.
We've got a few things to cover. We're going to have to do them really fast. Okay, so we're in the fast question round. So then I've got to hand over to ADHD Australia in 5 minutes' time. So I'm going to do that at 9:55. They've got a tight schedule to follow, and we've had a wonderful ADHD change. So anyone who's waiting for Anna Bond on ADHD and law and Hassel on motivation, we're going to be playing those tomorrow. We're shifting the clock by an hour because we have had a wonderful we've had a thing, and Australia's time zone needs to move an hour, and everything they've got is scheduled. Those ones we will pre-record, so we're going to move them around because we are nothing if not good in a crisis and a changing with the moment that we need to. Right, fast round, okay? Got my cards. Right. You talked earlier about agreeing on an ADHD diagnosis. We have a massive problem that you diagnose, then if I move, I've got to get diagnosed elsewhere. If I get a private one with you, GP won't accept it. Why is there not ADHD passporting, and how can we have it?
Great question. What we've got to do is lobby for change.
What does a passport look like? And I'm using that as a shorthand for it's accepted elsewhere.
It's absolutely in place. The National Health Service has the summary care record for every patient, and that goes with the patient wherever they go. These buggers just don't read it. Algorithm. These people don't read it.
It doesn't matter if you're correct.
It's there. It's absolutely there, and it's in place. What we've got to do is lobby for change. Do you know there's a head of NHS procurement, and she's refused to see me. So at the end of this month, the only thing I can do to get to see her is travel to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, because she's there trying to sell NHS services into the Middle East, and she's going to grant me half an hour in Riyadh. What an absolute load of nonsense. Why is the NHS supporting services when they can't get it right on their home turf? We've got to influence change. We've got to be strong, and we've got to be united.
Shared care. We've got so few minutes. Shared care. What's going on?
GPs have the right to refuse shared care. GPs are saying they don't like working.
Why are they not doing right to choose shared care?
Right, because they don't understand it. They don't actually understand where the obligations sit. And the expression that GPs use, and I welcome everybody to challenge their GP who says, we don't do shared care with the private sector, because actually every GP practice is a private sector organisation. No GP works in the NHS. They're all under contract, they're all profit making, and they're all just not turkeys that want to vote for Christmas. We have to challenge the established way of doing things. If a provider that's licensed to the NHS applies for shared care, it should be given. End of story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's in the NHS constitution to make that happen.
What's your wait list for right to choose right now?
For right to choose at the moment, about 3 months. We're going to bring that down. We've had a meeting today of the clinical team.
So the right to choose wait list is 3 months right now?
Well, at the moment, it's about 3 months. I expect, because of Psychiatry UK's issues, it's going to go and expand exponentially. We're trying to work through it at the moment.
Why are you making a loss if you've got, why can't you just flip to right to choose?
Well, we are flipping to right to choose, apart from the fact the NHS don't pay us. We have £500,000 of debt from the NHS. £500,000. Because
salaries and mortgages don't wait, right?
They don't. And we have...
Sainsbury's don't take NHS credit.
We are paying wages, and the NHS is refusing to pay us because they don't like right to choose. And they're challenging that the contract.
And have they changed that? Have payment terms changed? Have they spread those out now?
No.
Or are they always that awful?
Absolute bloody nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. We have to challenge the establishment. We really can't sit down and let this happen. We've had to temper how many right to choose we've taken because we're not being paid for them. Broadway Pharmacy, our partner pharmacy, has £250,000 of debt for medicine that the NHS under right to choose are refusing to pay for. This is not right. This is, but we are going to take on more right to choose. I've finished a letter today, which has been signed off to go to every commissioner saying, you might not like right to choose, but we're not giving you a choice. Here's the legal background. Here's the NHS framework. We're coming for you. You either pay us or we take you to court. And I will proudly take a commissioner to the small claims court to get what we're owed. And that's what we've said to them today. You are going to be taken to court for non-payment. And we will turn right to choose into something that actually exists for the right reasons.
And it's interesting in other parts, so like in Wales, for example, the NHS, I believe, and I know right to choose does not apply in Wales. It has a payment obligation because it recognises that the impact a large organisation has, and I'm pretty certain it has a requirement to pay within, I think it's 60 days. But they recognise that. We've got to go because Australia have got to take over. You guys have been amazing. The passion, and I felt like if you've watched Wrexham, they have a passionometer, which is the number of times he swears during the thing is related to his passion. You hit the passionometer bell right to the top. You're both amazing. Like, the work you do is extraordinary, and you're like. There are some things where you have a business which does good, and I do genuinely believe that is what you have. And thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing everything, the work you're doing. It's a very, very tough time for everyone. Your focus on your patients and the wider ADHD community in this period was wonderful to see. Thank you very much. I've got to say goodbye. You're amazing.
And thanks to your ongoing support and for the work you do, Henry. It's invaluable. And when our chips are down and we're on the floor, it's the comments from people that are coming in now that keep us going. We know we're here to serve a massive patient group. We're doing our very best. Henry, don't ever stop doing what you're doing either. If you have a day where you think you're going to pull stubs and pack up, ring me and I'll kick your backside. We need third sector advocacy as much as anything, and I know it's brilliant when we all work together.
We do hard it. Gosh, it's hard. I have to say.
Yeah.
And to talking of which, donate people. Like, we need the money. Like, this is tough as. Look, there's a lot of comments coming in of support for you, and I've tried to highlight some of them on the screen. Right now, you'll be at the hard end of it with getting lots of quite angry calls, and so I want you to do look at those and see people who are understanding and appreciating and recognizing the passion and seeing it. And I think you being here, being candid and honest is a wonderful thing, and it will have helped a lot of people. Thank you.
See
I've
you
got to
soon.
go to Australia.
Look after
You
yourself.
guys.
Everybody, look after yourselves during these difficult times, please. Don't give up.
Thank you. Well, look, goodbye, and thank you again.